Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to give it some time before I gave you guys this full-on update because I wanted to see how the day was going to close for XRP ETFs. And, well, let's just say something crazy is happening. And that thing that's happening is the fact that we are now starting to see a slight glimpse into the future on how XRP ETFs are going to perform when XRP finally has a massive breakout. Let's first start off with some of the charts because leading up to this point, I've been talking about some key levels that XRP must be breaking over in order for us to be bullish again. The first initial level that we were talking about was roughly about $1.94. We did break over that pretty easily. In fact, it was in just one single daily candle that we did get that push. We were talking about this even back before this impulse move happened. I did say that XRP is ready to explode. And the reason why is because we were finding a bottom, we were creating a higher low structure, and we were just waiting for the breakout. And that did happen pretty much that same day, which was kind of crazy in terms of timing. But regardless of that, we did have that much larger breakout. And then after that, what we were really kind of looking for is for us to, flip some key levels. The first initial level that we were really looking at was going all the way back to, 2024. There was a lot of levels back here that we really needed to, flip from even going back to 2024. And that was mainly going back to roughly the December timeframe. Those levels were pretty easy to flip for, what it kind of seems like on the chart, because again, these daily candles were, pretty crazy. I mean, we're jumping from roughly $2.08 to $2.30 some cents. So we were adding 20 to 30 cent candles to XRP during this time. So almost all of those levels were broken pretty easily. Even a lot of the resistance levels going back to November, that was broken over. And then we hit the first major roadblock, which was about roughly $2.35. Now, everyone was wondering why XRP was struggling around these levels. Well, it's very simple, right? There's a lot of resistance here. There's a lot of support that has now been flipped into resistance as well. And that goes all the way back to early 2025, even late 2024. So when we're looking at this, there's going to be a little bit of a challenge here for, XRP to really kind of break over. And then if we're looking at this on the weekly, so the weekly is a little bit different. Still a lot of resistance here. Even we could see that after we, broke down in May, right? This was acting as resistance. So this $2.35 level, a lot of pressure here for XRP to break over. It's also, if we're really looking at the high wick that we wicked to, I mean, it's slightly above some of those support levels going back to October, but all of this entire area here is going to be hard for XRP to break over. The main thing that we're looking at is the weekly candle closes going back to May and even going back to March. This level, once we break over it, so very similar to that $1.94 level on the daily on how easy it was to just kind of pump through it. Once we clear this $2.43 level on the weekly, so if we get a weekly candle close above it, it's going to be very similar to this time back here in July, because the second that we had that massive push above it, guess what? The next weekly candle was a $2.81 XRP to a $3.66 XRP. So that's how fast things can move once we start to break over these key levels. Now, obviously, looking at the chart here, XRP still looks very good. The main thing about the daily that we finally got is confirmation of bullish structure, because we have those higher lows and now we have those higher highs. So this looks very good. Now, on top of XRP, performing pretty well and then hitting a roadblock, that's also in part with what Bitcoin did. So Bitcoin did hit a wall at about roughly 93.9K, almost $94,000. That's because we just tried to break over the prior high wicks. So this high wick here from roughly 94.6K, we managed to reject off of that. So until Bitcoin has a much larger breakout here, the market's going to stall slightly. Now, does that mean that we're done and that we're going to have a much larger crash here on Bitcoin? No, I don't believe so. I think that we just hit some resistance. It's acting as resistance. We're going to have a slight pullback and then continuation should happen. Which is also why I said that 95K target on Bitcoin is still very important for us to break over, because I even said back on the 2nd that we need to clear 95K and then it's game over for the bears, because we should see a much larger jump to 100K plus. So currently we need to be a little bit cautious. I said that at about roughly 7:36 a.m. today. Bitcoin was trading at, I don't even know what it was trading at, but I know that it was like right around these levels here on the chart. So yeah, it was like $94,000 or so. And then after that, we had the capitulation around like 9 or 10 a.m., like 9 into 10 a.m. Guys, I have to interrupt the video because we have a serious problem right now in crypto, and that is data breaches coming from Ledger. That's right, the cold storage device creator, Ledger. This is unacceptable. I've talked about this in the past as well because this is a very common theme with Ledger. It's been happening for years and years and years now. This is also why I promote iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital obviously is an affiliate of the channel. They are a sponsor of the channel as well. Yes, I do make money from iTrust Capital. I'm very transparent about that. However, I also did research on iTrust Capital for years. I've utilized iTrust Capital for years. I've followed iTrust Capital for years. This is a platform that I trust, that I have utilized, that I love their products, especially the premium custody account, because it allows me to sleep at night with zero concern about my digital assets because it's a fully closed loop system. Not to mention, they have partnerships with Coinbase Asset Management, Fidelity Digital Assets, and even Wells Fargo and Fireblocks. This is one of the best platforms to custody your assets. Obviously, if you want to have full control of your keys, then hey, Decent Wallet is very good as well. But this is a fully closed loop institutional grade custody platform that I personally think is one of the best, especially to get away from things like this. So if you guys do want to sign up, there's going to be a link down in the description below as well as in the comments below. And let's jump back on into the video. And the funny thing about that timing is that a lot of people have been looking at it as major manipulation because yes, 10 a.m. has pretty much marked manipulation happening for Bitcoin. This is like the 9:30 a.m. open for Bitcoin and for stocks, and then Bitcoin had a little bit of a sell-off. It wasn't anything crazy. We were starting to chop, and then the major sell-off happened after. And a lot of people are saying like, hey, this is manipulation. Bull theory has been right on par with this for quite some time. And you might say, all right, well, this is nothing new. We're all used to manipulation in this market. The thing about this though, is this 10 a.m. Market open time frame has always been working out for Bitcoin to have a massive sell-off. And this has been going all the way back here to December 18th when it first really started. Again, we see the major jump, 10 a.m. activated again. And by the way, it's been happening pretty much all throughout December. So every single time at 10 a.m., we see Bitcoin have that massive sell-off. And again, it's not new this time around either. It's happening still. So again, until the manipulation stops and until we start to break over those key levels, I would argue that we're probably just going to continue to chop a little bit here. But the good thing is XRP breaking above $2, reclaiming key levels on the weekly view. I mean, listen, our weekly candle close was pretty strong as well. I really do think that XRP right now looks very good. It looks very good because we have a strong weekly candle brewing already. If we can manage to close this weekly candle above $2.37, that would be a very good start. If we close above that $2.45 level, definitely watch out because I do think that we're going to move violently on XRP. But this is all in par with like the ETF volumes because the ETF volumes have been very, very good, especially on this jump. We got to remember, right? This is a 24-hour view. So this is a slight move on XRP. I know that a lot of people will say like, this is a crazy move on XRP. We jumped like 25%. The total view here was roughly like 28% or so. However, I do want to just go back a little bit. I want to go back prior to the ETFs being live. I want to go all the way back here from June into July. This entire move from the lows, all right, we'll go off of the full low. This was roughly a 90% jump on XRP. And it didn't take that long for this to really morph into reality. We're talking about roughly, 26 days. In that 26-day period, that's a major jump. But I also want to go back to when we were in the heat of the moment for the, bull run, if you will. This was a crazy time back here in, XRP history now. Like this is now a part of history for XRP. But the reason why I bring this up is because I want to go off of some of these slight moves here where it was like 50% candles in just a couple days, or even this last major run, which was like the most significant one. This was like 120% in just like roughly a week. I bring that up because the ETFs, We just jumped about roughly like 20 some percent, 28% or so. The ETFs did extremely well off of just that slight run. They did so well that CoinDesk had to put a spotlight on it, and they said XRP ETFs are the top performing crypto ETFs today and recorded their highest daily trading volume since launch. And yes, we broke the record. This was a crazy day for XRP ETFs. Listen closely to what they are saying at CoinDesk. We have here from Bank XRP, institutional momentum accelerates XRP up 11%, $2.33, 48 million ETF inflows in 24 hours. Check it out.
Let's take a look at the chart of the day. XRP is flashing strength, surging over 11% today. The breakout is being driven by a classic supply and demand squeeze. US spot XRP ETFs continue to quietly absorb coins, adding another $13.6 million in fresh inflows starting in 2026. The steady institutional buying is colliding with a supply tightness dynamic as XRP balances on exchanges sit near multi-year lows. This means more big money buyers are competing for a shrinking pool of available coins. Network fundamentals are also heating up with daily transactions on the XRP ledger climbing back toward the 1 million mark. Technically, the move was validated by trading volume running nearly 50% above average. That's it for today's chart of the day. I'm Jensen.
So yeah, I mean, listen, this was an incredible time to really be watching XRP, because leading up to this move, like I said, even in the video that I addressed XRP exploding, I said ETFs are continuously accumulating. They are accumulating at the same exact time that we still are starting to see a lot of buying pressure from institutional players, from retail, at a time where everyone is getting very bearish. So it was all just a spring loading and loading and loading until we started to see that big move. And that's exactly what we got. Now, at the same exact time, we did break the record for the ETFs. Chad Steingraber posted, official record broken, best day for the XRP ETF since launch. We got bigger records to break still. And yeah, this was pretty crazy. I mean, we're talking about over $60 million in volume. And by the way, now XRP is the leading asset for performance ETFs for all of the total market for 2026. Look at this. This is absolutely insane. All three of the major ones, Volatility Shares, XRP ETF, Canary, and Rex Allspray, all in the top list. That's crazy. And you better bet anyone that doesn't have an XRP ETF trading live right now, or even a filing, is watching this. You could probably already guess what I'm getting at, but yes, we're still waiting on BlackRock. We're still waiting on Fidelity. And by the way, the record we have over here, XRP ETFs continue record run. ETF investors added 46.1 million worth of XRP yesterday, bringing the total ETF held net assets to 1.65 billion. US spot XRP ETFs have now logged 53 consecutive days of inflow since launch. And I'm not too sure if it is 53 days. I mean, you could look at this on XRP or xpmarket.com/ETF. This is telling us that if we're going off of the launch, we're at about roughly 60 days of inflows straight. But I guess this is just going off a fully spot base because this is from So Value. And even if we're looking over there as well, I mean, listen, it doesn't really matter on how many days of straight inflows we've had. I'm mainly looking at the daily view here, and I want to go all the way back to when we had that massive launch. I mean, this was like $250 million worth of net inflows. We just hit, I mean, some of these, it's crazy to look at the date range here and how much inflows we are seeing. I mean, the total net inflow from yesterday was about 46 million. I'm not too sure how they're tracking this. Again, every single one of these websites are a little bit different. If we're going off of, let's go back to the 30-day view. So on the 4th, we had a little over 100 and it was close to 200 million. I would say this is like 180 million. And then yesterday on the 5th. So the 4th, I guess they're accounting the 4th from Friday, which was the 2nd. I might be wrong on this. I'm not too sure how they're tracking because the 4th was a Sunday. But then yesterday, which was of course Monday, we recorded over like 160 million. I know that on the launch of Franklin Templeton's, they were saying it was like roughly like 150, 160 million. So we did challenge that and we broke over it. But on so value, this is why I'm not going off of the 53 consecutive days. The way that they're tracking this and the way that this looks, it just seems a little off. I'm not too sure where they're pulling the data from or what their API is, but we just know that if we're looking at this on the monthly view, if January is a very bullish month for XRP, which in my opinion it will be, I do think that we challenge every single one of these months for the inflows on the spot ETFs. And already, if we're thinking about the ETF inflows and how much value is held in them, like if we're looking at the daily close today, it was roughly 60 million, almost 59.48 million. Already in terms of the XRP locked, over 785.88 million. I think it was a change of like, yeah, so this is kind of crazy. It was a change of like 19 million XRP in the inflows for this week, which if we're thinking about that, we're starting to see the total supply getting locked up in a much faster way. I'm not going to say supply shock because I just don't think that we see it yet or anytime soon, but this is definitely building towards that. But like I said, the ETFs are starting to accumulate more and more and more. And we could see, week 1 was very good. This was the total week 1, the net total as well. Here we have, week 2, and we could see the change, right? We could see the change in terms of the total XRP being locked up. This was week 1, 766.81 million. Week 2 is already 785 million. So already from, the 5th to now, we're already seeing a change of over 19.1 million XRP in just 1 week. So again, we're starting to see so much XRP getting locked up in these ETFs. If this type of demand continues, and we start to see a lot more inflows, which I do believe that we will, because again, all of this has been built on the back of XRP having that much larger jump. We're now starting to see the ETFs performing with price action, regardless of if we sell off or not, because remember, even in the down market, even when XRP was pretty bearish, ETF inflows were still going crazy. But now we got our confirmation of how the ETFs will perform when XRP starts to wake up in a much larger way. And remember, this is one of the first major bounces that we've gotten since that jump back in July. So this is the first major jump in XRP that we've had since the ETFs went live. So just imagine what happens when XRP breaks over the prior highs and we really start to see FOMO kick in. I think that these ETFs could record well over, $250 plus million in a single day, which will lead to even more XRP getting locked up in these vaults. We could probably be on par for 1 billion XRP being locked up by, I would say, like the end of quarter 1. So by March, we will probably see over 1 billion XRP getting locked up. And that's me being very conservative because again, in just 1 week, we saw 20 million almost XRP getting locked up. So this could happen much sooner than the end of quarter 1. So ETFs have been going absolutely crazy. Price action is starting to show up slightly. We still need to break over some key levels. We need to be cautious while we wait. But guys, this is very exciting to see. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.